Hey everyone, welcome to the Promethean Tides. I'm General, and tonight I'm joined by Tom
Pnoid.
T
Pnoid.
Noise T
I'm
T Noise
Pnoid. I'm Pnoid.
T Noid God and Frogwin.
Yeah, I'm Pnoid, man. All right. Yo, what up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Pnoid News. Man, listen, I'm here as always with my bottom bitch, my partner, my muse, the only YouTuber with a bedazzled dick, Green Chief, man. What up, man? How you doing?
Okay, yeah. Generally speaking, it's General Chief, but yeah, Green works as well. Thank you, sir.
No, man, look like Green Chief to me on the joint, man.
I
I can't
That's
read it.
totally fair. I use the lead speak, so it's a little bit unintelligible. I totally respect
It's
that.
totally General Chief, but okay.
Yeah, I said Green. I'm not a video game guy, man. Everybody knows I don't play no video games, you know.
uh,
Like,
so I'm genuinely curious about this idea, right? So who the fuck is it that exploded the Nord Stream pipeline? Was it America? Was it Russia? Or
I seen a video just earlier today that was some guy was being interviewed. I think he was from Europe, but it was on Bloomberg, and he was saying that America definitely did it because there was radar evidence suggesting that they were circling around the area. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
yeah, I 100% concur. I think we used Poland like a condom to do it. You know what I mean? That tends to be how it operates.
you're sure it wasn't Mongolia?
I mean, it's the possibility. You know, the Chinese are always worried about them shitty Mongolians trying to ruin their shitty wall. You know?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was fucking America. In my opinion, it makes sense. We bombed that pipeline, and then I think that there was another pipeline that was opened up like the day after that ran from like Greece to Germany. That was a NATO project. So it makes sense that it was the fucking United States that did that shit.
Yo, all right. Can I get into like a little deep stuff real quick? Because
Sure, man,
like
yeah.
I have a deep seated like conspiracy theory I've been thinking about with this. So like, okay, do you remember the war in Syria and what it was about?
It wasn't about. It wasn't about much, man. I don't even know why we did that.
Okay, so there was two sets of pipelines that were going to be put through, right? One was from Iran and one was from Kuwait, and it was like the American project, right? And Assad wanted to do the Iran one and not the Kuwait one, right? And so we had to bomb him back to the Stone Age, and we dropped so many bombs that we ran out of bombs, right? And with that thinking, it kind of leads up to the ideology that where if we would have went through Syria and went into like places like Damascus or into Turkey, right, and then Turkey into Greece, and then Greece into Germany, I'm just saying, you know, kind of lends credence to that type of idea.
Yeah, the entire reason why it is that we invaded the Middle East was basically how to best supply Europe with oil and gas.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I get down to. I think literally like this might have been like something that is long term in the planning. You know what I mean?
So, I think you're totally right. I think that America bombed that shit, even though the media is saying that, oh no, it was Russia for some goddamn reason. Doesn't make any sense. But what about this? The Ukraine is now trying to join NATO. What the fuck is up with that?
Well, from what I understand, NATO don't let any countries that have had a border dispute or a war in for at least like 10 years, right? Number one. But number two, like, so the Ukraine knows it is going to lose the Donbass, right? They know for sure. And like the whole purpose of this war for Russia, right, was twofold. One is for security, and the second one is because they wanted to put in a rail line from, what's the name of that, Belarus and Russia down through the Donbass, down through Kherskiv or whatever, into Crimea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that they can have a direct link. You know what I mean? To be able to, because like throughout Russia's history, unless like they expand outward, they've never had a warm water port. But Crimea is a warm water port that's open all year round.
It's a major strategic advantage for Russia. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to go with strategic advantage, but I'd most definitely go with like a necessity. Like, yo, if you want to do trade, you know what I mean?
I mean, it's a strategic advantage to have it versus not have it, right? Like that's pretty big.
Yeah, like 100%. You know, like it's a giant advantage to be able to have like a port that you can use in the winter. You know,
It also gives it a southern strike point that don't launch attacks from.
I yes and no, right? Because like you also have the straits there in Turkey, right? Is it Turkey? I think it's Turkey. I'm pretty sure that's a country, right? That like
Istanbul,
what if we
Istanbul. That's part of Turkey.
yeah. We'll go with that, right? Okay. Yeah. So they have straits there that they can't really actually go through, right? Unless they say they can. You know what I mean? And so you end up having like them. You know, what I mean, them like not being able to escape the Black Sea. So there's still, you know, I mean, there's submarine nets there and all that shit. There's not a whole lot that's going to really change as far as that's concerned.
Well, so there's so this war is escalating, I guess, and I guess we're encroaching on World War III, just step by step, and now in the past couple days, Russia is saying that they're making this nuclear bomb that is a torpedo that can make a nuclear typhoon. I think that part of this might be propaganda. But it is scary. Like I think
it's
that
tsunami.
Yeah. Sorry, not a typhoon. You're right. Yeah, a tsunami, a nuclear tsunami. It's scary. I think that part of it might just be propaganda bullshit. I don't know if Russia actually has that capability yet, but it is very spooky.
Yo, I mean, like, I'm always concerned when it comes down to the military and, like, what they say, right? Because, like, have you ever watched the Boondocks, the cartoon show?
Yeah, I've seen like 10 episodes, maybe.
Okay, did you see the one with the pimp named Slickback?
Yes.
Okay, you remember when, like, that female was like, I don't know if I can do it with this computer system, Daddy. You know, it's always moving slow, right? And he sees, like, the articles for, like, brand new computers. He's like, every time a new Apple comes out, you always start talking that I need a new computer shit. You better make that shit work, right? And, like, that's what our military does, like, all the time. They're like, we war gamed, you know what I mean, trying to stop China from invading Taiwan, and we lost. So, you know, we need like $11 billion to stand here and buy a new boat, right? You know what I mean? And like they're using outmoded, old plans that like haven't been like relevant since the 1970s. You know what I mean? And so every time they talk about things like they try to scaremonger us with Iran. I don't know if you remember, like when we killed that general there, and like Iran struck back at Iraq and launched like 36 missiles at an airport, right? And 5 of them hit the airfield. Not one hit a building, right? And like I was terrified. I was like, oh no, man! Like they're gonna start launching missiles and stuff. And it comes to find out that like 2 of the missiles that they shot off hit an overhead plane by accident, right? Like most of these countries are hot garbage, and the military doesn't want to admit we're about 70 years ahead of everybody else at the moment.
Well, I don't know, man. You know, when it came to 9/11, the plane, you know, 2 planes hit the Twin Towers, and then I think it was what was it, Building 7 or Building 11?
Building 7 fell. Building 7 fell.
Yeah, Building 7. It just fell, and why? Nothing hit it. Maybe like a piece of loose flaming trash landed on it and then caused the entire building to fall. Who knows why the fuck that happened? But it did.
I don't know.
I guess.
Like, I'll be honest, I think that was Jason Bourne. You know what I mean? With that building on fire. Like, me personally, you know, like, what it kind of comes down to for me is, like, I go, I don't understand the whole Building 7 thing. I'm like, maybe that one was on purpose. Because it fell in free fall into its own footprint. Right, it didn't have like one part of the building fall down, or you know what I mean, some structural problem, or like because it wasn't even like it was a skyscraper. I think it was only like I want to say 30 stories or something like that, which is tall, but
It's-
well within like
It's
reason.
not
And
tall
it was
for New
long.
York. That's short for New York.
Yeah, right. Like so, like it was long too. So like it's not like the weight wasn't distributed well. You know what I mean?
No, it was one small piece of flaming trash that happened to land on it, and then it
Yeah.
fell down. I mean, yeah, that's how buildings work, I guess.
I mean, CIA. Right? Just like just saying. Right? You know, like that's I don't know. Like the other two towers, like I completely get. Like they go jet fuel can't burn steel, and I'm like, you've never worked with structural steel before. Like I used to work in a steel mill. I know how. I used to melt steel with natural gas. Like
The plane fuel would also burn up in about a split second, so it wouldn't have
No.
been long enough to burn through the steel.
I mean,
No. All right. So as it comes down, it creates basically like a drip or like a stream of jet fuel. And as the end of it's on fire and it's pushing more down and it's puddling up, and like as it's standing here like pushing down towards the steel, it'll melt that piece, and then that piece will sit here and like become like structurally like broken, and it will cut straight through it.
It
I mean-
wouldn't fall in free fall speed from a jet fuel explosion, though.
it could. It's not going to melt, but it could lose a lot of structural integrity.
Oh, it'll
Like,
melt.
That is a
It'll
thing.
melt. It'll melt.
I mean, even if it doesn't melt, when you heat it up, it loses its strength. It becomes pliable. So
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't fall in on itself at
Well-
free fall speed unless it was a controlled demolition.
The
I
towers
mean-
are so like the upper part of the towers fell down onto the bottom part of the towers, and so like it's kind of like following through with a punch, right? It's where like one piece fell down and bowed, it broke that, and then broke that, and then broke that, and each time it got heavier, and as it did, it just kept pushing down, and that whole thing just came crash, and you could see it didn't break evenly, like it's tilted. Right, it's like on a diagonal, so like you can tell it wasn't brought down on purpose because like it was tilted, right? And like all these pieces,
Absolutely was.
But it did like fall down in a very sort of neat and orderly way.
Free fall speed is only possible by moving out every layer below it at the exact same time. That would not happen with two planes hitting it.
It was very neat and orderly.
I don't know, like all right, so the towers, I can get behind the planes knocking them down, right? Because
Zero
especially
chance.
Hang on.
Zero chance.
so especially once the planes hit the structural steel on the inside, right?
The planes were
literally-
designed to withstand multiple plane impacts. And
Yeah,
then
but
they
we're-
lied and said they never even considered it. The whole
Yeah.
story is just filled with red flags.
Although, I mean, to be fair, they said that they were designed to withstand plane impacts, but then again, you give the construction of the tower to the lowest bidder, and it's like, well, maybe they cut some.
But
cut some
not
corners.
only was it was designed for plane impact, but I think it was Condoleezza Rice, perhaps. She said that we never in 1,000 years could have even imagined planes flying into buildings, right? So
Well,
they blatantly lied.
Well, okay, first off, she's a woman, right? And she's not a human being, therefore, being a woman, right? And she is also not an engineer, nor a structural engineer, nor a
You don't need to
metallurgist.
be an engineer
No, she's a
to
politician.
say we never nobody in our administration contemplated flying planes into buildings.
Nobody in that administration built the towers, is what I'm saying.
Bro,
Yeah, but there was people who were in the previous administrations who were also in that one.
we spent like a good portion of World War II dealing with Japanese motherfuckers flying planes into shit. Like, I feel like that should be part of our defense structure.
I mean, like, I'll be honest, son. Have you ever known our government to be intelligent enough to think ahead?
Yes, actually, very much so. Just because at
Never.
lower levels they seem very unorganized, at the highest levels they're absolutely thinking many steps ahead.
I mean, the DMV is pretty dumb, but I guess when you get up there in government politics, maybe it becomes a little bit smarter.
Yeah, when you get to the highest levels, like backdoor kind of, closed door kind of meetings, that's where you actually have pretty intelligent people. When you have the DMV, you're just hiring anybody for the most mundane task. You're not looking for the highest IQ people there, right? But if you're looking at the top generals and the top think tanks, I mean, at that point, you're dealing with pretty intelligent people.
But I would also say
No.
that when
I would say the generals might be some of the dumbest people in our fucking government.
well, that could be true. The military
in
seems to be pretty
military,
fucked up
maybe,
right
because you can grow just by being in long enough. But if we're talking think tanks, yeah, you kind of have to be intelligent to stay in there.
But
you don't
here-
rise the ranks there
but
just by
here's-
happening
here's-
to be there.
Here's the other thing though. Like if you think about how evil the DMV is just through sheer force of bureaucracy, like I don't think the DMV intends to be evil, but it is. Just imagine how evil the government is when it's actually smart and like operating effectively. That's the most evil thing that you can think of. It's like 10 times more evil than the DMV.
And can I add something else into this? These fucking towers were built in New York. They weren't built in DC by fucking the federal government. They were built under the watchful eye of, I want to say, the 1970s, 60s New York City municipal government. That
any operation that
90%
big,
of
the
this
federal government would be aware of it, especially in a major metropolitan area. The biggest towers in the world would have federal agencies looking at it on some level.
And no, right? And I remember the New York government literally lost like 3/4 of its police force later.
I mean, if you're seriously saying that 9/11 was not some kind of inside job, that just goes to show the intelligence of the people at the top, that to this day they have continued to fool people with something that was disproven 20 years ago.
The government is either evil or extremely stupid, or both.
Extremely evil, definitely, and the intelligence is a mix of both. You're not going to have someone who's a genius in every category, right? But you can be evil across the board pretty commonly.
I don't think they're evil. I just think they're bad at their jobs.
No,
Why
if
not
they were
both?
bad at the jobs,
Couldn't
we
they be
wouldn't
both?
be in all these wars. And yeah, no, they're pretty good at their jobs, unfortunately, but they are extremely evil.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay, all right. This is what I think the government is basically. So it's like a corporation. There are many corporations are not actually concerned with making a profit in the long term. They're concerned about making a profit for the next quarter because that's what satisfies the investors. I think that maybe the government is kind of the same thing. They're very concerned about short-term gains.
So
and
the average politician
but they're not
might
concerned
be,
about
but
actual
when-
like long-term plans, especially
when
the
you're
American
when-
government.
When you're looking at the
This
highest echelon,
is
you're
general-
looking at
this is
people like
general
Henry
chief stream.
Kissinger. They're looking very,
Right.
very long term.
Right.
These people
Yeah.
have been in the administration for decades. They're not looking for how can I get elected. They don't need to get elected. The only thing they need to do is figure out how to advance their agenda.
Yeah, all right. This is General Chief Stream. Do me a favor, Brad. Don't talk over him. Do me that favor, please.
I mean, I was just saying a point.
No. I'm just saying, like, you're waiting until he's
I
done
think if
talking, and then
anything, I was
oh.
talking over you actually. So
No, he was talking, and I'm not. I said, "Yo, it's a stream." When you started talking,
I mean, yeah, but
Right.
as an interview, you usually want the people you're interviewing to speak as well. So I was just making a
it's
point
his
there.
Channel. No, it's his channel. Let him talk. Let him make his point, and then me and you can talk about it or whatever, and that's fine, right? But like, let's please keep this, orderly form, so that he
I'm
has
pretty
the
sure
ability
you
to
were
have
talking
something
over
to do.
him as well. I wouldn't be surprised if you were more pissed I was talking over you than him.
I'm just saying.
I appreciate the defense. We don't need to get into the nuances of who is talking over one another. I was just saying that. Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes to the government, I think that they're probably under a lot of the same pressures of major corporations. They're not thinking about shit like 8 or 10 years down the line. They're thinking about shit like, how do I impress my boss in the next quarter? And that leads to good short-term decision-making, but really bad long-term decision-making. And I think that, like, if you look at something like China, where you have a piece of shit dictator, that is actually an advantage that they have over us. Xi Jinping, he's a piece of shit, and he makes really poor decisions, but he can actually afford to make decisions that last like 5 or 10 years down the road.
Okay, well, like, here's the problem with a guy like Xi Jinping. First off, he shot the messenger so many times that now he's not getting messages. Like, they had those blackouts that happened
True.
back in March, right? And when they had those blackouts back in March, word around the grapevine is he didn't even fucking know about them until August because nobody wanted to tell him.
He
Right.
he also set up the fucking zero COVID policy, which has wrecked not only China's economy but more or less the world economy.
I mean, yes and no. You know, what I mean, like that's a hit or miss. You know, what I mean, like it really hasn't wrecked a whole lot. There's not a ton of
It
things that
caused
we're
a
missing out of
shitload
our
of
economy.
supply chain issues.
Well, no, the supply chain issues. A lot of it's coming from during COVID. So there's a bunch of stuff they did. It's really hilarious, which is the short term thinking that you're thinking about. These the transport companies, when they weren't transporting any goods, they literally took their container ships to Brazil and scrapped them. Right? Because they weren't making any money off of them, and they needed to be able to have some type of money for the bottom line at that point, right? And so we ended up with a massive supply chain problem where it ends up now the average cost of shipping a container across the Pacific Ocean is $15,000. It used to be $3,000.
It's fucking crazy.
Right? Yeah, bananas, nonsense, right? And it's terrible for everybody involved because the only people making any more money are the container ship operators. But so you have that part of the mix as far as stuff's concerned, and then you also have have you ever heard of the cathedral model?
I've heard the cathedral. What's the cathedral model?
All right, so it's a way of thinking about how power moves, right? So this comes out of Italian school thinkers in politics, the Italian political school in America. Right, there's not a lot of us left, but there's a few of us. I'm a big Machiavelli guy.
Nice.
So basically, there's a book named called "The Managerial Revolution," written by a guy named James Burnham, right, back in 1920s, 1930s. And the principle is that America's landowners used to be or America's oligarchy used to be landowners, right? And these landowners sat here and had they ended up starting businesses which were industrial. They weren't able to run them, so they had to hire managers, right? And these managers that were managing these businesses all came out of these colleges. And eventually it got down to the point where people like Woodrow Wilson and FDR started bringing these managers into government, right? And corporations on the top end are all getting the same people or all getting people trained by the same individuals because these universities, the top ones, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Georgetown, NYU, are writing the curriculums for all the universities across the nation, right? And so they're creating the management class, right, as a whole, that's in government, in your media, and in, your corporations, right? And a lot of the government bureaucrats, these management individuals inside of government, don't have, this is not the way I wanted to go, do not have the inputs and outputs measurable to be able to know when they're doing a good and a bad job.
Well, because they're detached from the economy. They're the ruling class. They're not actually involved with the day-to-day competition that exists. They must be detached, and therefore they don't make the best decisions.
Yes, right. And so this is what it gets down to. So when it's an argument between who's the structural steel provider and who's the concrete provider, the one that wins, you know what I'm saying, might not be for the best of reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and this is kind of where you get down to with government, because there's no measurable way to understand something. You're never going to know how a car performs in an impact until you crash test it or until it's wrecked into. You know what I mean? And these problems aren't found out until afterwards. So there's literally no input or output for a lot of this stuff. How do you, they might have done math back when they built, things like the towers or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? And it might not have held up because it might have been dumb math. So we might not have had the same jet fuel mixtures. There might have been different things in the mixtures. There might have been different types of planes, right? Like all of these goddamn things, like all add up differently, right? And this is like, and I'm not saying like one way or another because I don't know. I'm not a structural engineer. I wasn't at ground zero. I don't know shit about nothing other than the fact that I used to be a steel worker and I've melted steel with acetone, right? Like it's not hard to melt steel. But, like, you just got to get it moving first. All you need is air and a flammable liquid. And, you know what I mean, there's a little bit of pressure. And that shit'll fucking melt.
So this is my genuine perspective on this. I believe that when it comes to the economy that the West has produced, the powers that be, they have produced effectively a Ponzi scheme.
Yes.
I don't think that it's stable in the long term. I think that it will collapse, and even if the government like tries to keep it from collapsing, effectively what they're doing is creating a zombie economy where they're just propping it up and propping it up and propping it up, but eventually it must collapse. And I don't think that I honestly don't think that there's any way that it doesn't collapse at some point in the near future. So, in my opinion, I think that the best solution is actually to let the chips fall where they may now, and allow a small collapse to happen now, so that a larger, more calamitous collapse doesn't happen in the future.
I'm all for letting the chips fall. The issue with that is that the people who have planned this crisis are the same ones, again, problem, reaction, solution type stuff, right? So if it falls, it's going to be on their terms. They're going to set up their cards in their hands in a way that they can profit the most out of it. So whereas everybody else is collapsing in chaos, they're strategically lining up their next moves. That's the only issue there.
Well, okay, then what is the solution precisely? Because we find ourselves in a Ponzi scheme, effectively.
The only way these problems solve is by exposing and removing the people who are causing the problems. As long as those people remain at the top and in control, they will cause problem after problem, and people will not be none the wiser, right? They'll keep falling for every little scam, every little trick, every propaganda, manipulation tactic they throw out, right? The only way that things change is by changing up the people who are at the top.
Well, that's just called voting, then. I mean,
the economic people, the people who are at the top of the financial ladder, are much higher than the people at the top of the political ladder.
Well, no, they're detached, right, is the issue, right? So, like, okay, Congress stands here and sets up agencies that are underneath the executive branch, right? But Congress funds them. Right, so like they really actually don't have a boss because the executives can't defend them. Right, the best they can do is get rid of single employees.
Congress pretty much unilaterally voted in support of the Patriot Act and the endless wars in the Middle East.
They did do that. That's true.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter for what we're talking about, right?
It absolutely does matter. When it comes down to issues that the people at the top want done, Congress unilaterally acts to make those things happen.
We're talking about the bureaucracy.
I'm talking about the people who control the bureaucracy at the highest level.
No one controls the bureaucracy.
There's people who absolutely do. There might be a group, but those people absolutely control things from a much more powerful perspective than Congress, president, prime ministers.
I don't know. I personally speaking, I'm a believer in emergent properties. So I believe that there are great evils that can be inflicted upon humanity that other humans choose to inflict upon humanity, but it's not a cabal of people that are choosing to do that. It's a set of choices that they make because of the incentives that they have in front of them.
So David Rockefeller, if you read his autobiography entitled Memoirs, I don't know what page it's on, but you can look it up. So vaguely paraphrasing it, but very close to the exact quote, he basically says, "Some have even accused me and my family and associates of being engaged in a covert cabal acting against the interests of the American people. And if those are the accusations, I stand guilty and I'm proud of it." So in his own autobiography, a top member of the Rockefeller family openly stated, yes, we are a cabal and we're secretly manipulating the world from behind the scenes, and we're proud of it. So when you have high-level people like that making statements like that, it should really raise some questions for anybody who is thinking on any intelligent level.
Well, yeah, but that's not the whole quote, right? Because there's more phrasing behind it,
The whole
right?
quote is probably more damning. I'll look it up real fast.
Well, not because like the whole quote is that like the world is changing and we have to adjust to it, and like there's things that like have to be done in order for the economy to continue forward, and like be able to have everybody have the things that they need, right? And so people accuse me and my family of working in a cabal to go against the American people, right? And you have guys like Bill Kristol, right? Do you know who Bill Kristol is by chance, General Chief?
I don't know.
Bill Kristol is a country club Republican, right? And he's a Republican strategist, and he says that Thomas Jefferson, was it Jefferson or Adams? Somebody said this. They said basically America's refreshed by immigrants every so often, right? That allows us to be able to like continue forward because like the original population gets like coddled and weak and soft and effeminate and don't want to work anymore, and so you have a fresh group of immigrants that come in, right? And right now it's the Mexicans, you know what I'm saying? And like it's like you're gonna end up having like the original people, like the people who live here, replaced because they're soft and stop having children, and like don't want to work and don't want to continue forward. But if you want an economy, you have to have people that are willing to go pick the strawberries, basically, right? And so these are decisions that these individuals make, right? But it has very little to do with some cabal or anything like that. It's more along the lines of, what do y'all want?
Well, and I do want to remind everyone,
and hopefully the audience can reflect on this.
I would like to remind everyone that look, when it comes to climate change, it's a major issue. It's in your and everyone's best interest to not have children, and if you do happen to have children, remember to parent responsibly and spay and neuter your children, please.
Okay, so here's the David Rockefeller quote from his autobiography entitled Memoirs. It's 2 paragraphs, just please hear me out here. For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents, such as my encounter with Castro, to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in past centuries. So here we can see what we were talking about earlier, where they are indeed planning decades ahead of time. They're not simply looking for the next quarter. There are people at the very top echelons who are indeed looking decades, even centuries ahead.
Well, that would be the Rothschilds.
Wow.
Yes, Rothschild, Rockefellers, a number of other large families and organizations.
What I was saying was that I believe that the government is limited to some of the same market forces that major companies are. They have to look like a quarter or 2 quarters ahead. They can't actually make long-term decisions. I didn't say that no one was able to make long-term decisions. I believe that, yeah, that is something that a lot of powerful individuals, they are able to do that, just not the government, which is why the government tends to be dumb.
So the government as a whole consists of a lot of dumb people, but at the highest echelons, very intelligent people, perhaps insane and a bit delusional in some respects, but very intelligent people are calling the shots. Now, when you have a large organization, there's not enough people who are all align with the same principles, in this case, their evil agenda, but people who align with their agenda and are smart enough to fill all the positions, right? So the less influential positions, the guy at the DMV or whatever, just find whoever the fuck you can fill the position with, right? But at the highest levels, the people who are in charge of long-term geopolitical planning, those people are highly intelligent and they openly admit to being against the interests of the average person.
I guess.
Well, like, okay, so like,
we would have to talk about the two different types of government in that case, because you have the elected officials like a Hillary Clinton or a Donald Trump or one of those type of people, versus, let's say, the Gang of Four, right? You have like the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and the FDA, right? So you have the shadow government, the unelected officials, versus the elected officials. The elected officials are based around just quarterly cycles, really election cycles. Whereas, whereas the quote unquote deep state, that is actually the thing that can plan ahead.
Exactly, and the elected officials really don't need to plan ahead, right? They're just concerned with their own political career, but on top of that, some of them have to be aware that they're just pawns in their game, right? They're just there as a distraction. Look how many people have conversations about who's getting elected the next election cycle. How many people are talking about the people really running shit? So they're basically just political entertainers to distract the masses from what's really going on, so real discussions about who's really in charge never get to have gain major influence in the public domain.
all right, so like, here's the thing, right? That like you got to really look at this, right? So there are a lot of internationalists, you know what I mean, in government and in like business and in, you know what I mean, the upper echelons of the elite, right? And this gets back to like my principles of liberalism that like we talk about on my channel all the time, and I talk about, you know what I mean, in Discord where we're at, right? It's the principle of like these people, liberalism as a whole is the fucking religion of the upper class merchants, right? And these merchant class people want to be international. They don't want to be trapped in one country. They want to do business everywhere, right? But the people themselves are trapped in the United States and in their towns and in their cities and at their jobs and their factories and their little office buildings or whatever the case is, right? And this is what David Rockefeller's actually talking about, right? He's saying that, like, yo, look, there are people who think that I'm working against the national sovereignty of America, right? And they're right. You know what I mean? Because of the fact that, like, yo, he's an international businessman, right? He's not part of our fucking class as a whole. And once you accept that and you understand that, like, they're not evil. That's not an evil thing. Like, yo, these internationalists are the reasons why we're talking on these fucking cell phones right now, or on your computer, or on your microphone, or whatever it is. None of these, as a whole, are how do I put this? None of these things are available unless you have international trade, or else you'd be paying $50,000 or $60,000 each for these things.
You could absolutely have this done within a single nation, but that's beside the point. That
it's not.
Your cell phone tracks you. Big tech, Facebook censors you.
Oh,
I mean, they're developing tools for the masses' destruction, and you're saying, "Oh, they're not evil," because look at what fun benefits we get out of it. You know, you're boiling a frog, you're enjoying a hot tub bath, you're sitting here building a mental prison for yourself, and you're happy you get to enjoy yourself. Look how good these people must be.
I'm giving you the argument that's made by libertarians and internationalists and the motherfucking corporate elites.
Well, I don't know if I would actually peg the libertarians as being the same thing as the international elites.
Yeah, I think they're quite contrary.
I think they're the same.
There's no way.
I'm not sure about that one. I think that for the most part, when I think of a libertarian, I think of like some guy in West Virginia with a fucking rifle. Like that's what I think of when I think of a libertarian. That's very different than an international elite.
So libertarian wants freedom of drug use. Big corporations, internationalists, they want to restrict drug access to only what their corporations are able to produce at high profits. It's quite contrary between the two groups. That's just one example of many.
The libertarians are big business, open borders, like, yo, freedom of movement.
That's
and
not
they're
true.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, the freedom of movement maybe, but I would say
No,
a lot
no,
of
no.
them are against open borders.
I think that there's two types of libertarians. There's the open border libertarian and the closed border libertarian. The nationalist versus the internationalist libertarian. In the same way that when it comes to socialists, you can have the international socialists and the national socialists. And
The Nazis.
well, yeah, and there's differences between those two. So, personally speaking, I would call myself a national libertarian. I believe that it doesn't make any sense to spread libertarianism to the rest of the world to just for the purposes of ideology. Keep it within your borders. You don't need to spread it. You don't need to fucking force it on others. But, you know, within your borders, yeah, have libertarianism. Fuck yeah.
So again, like the libertarians, right, as a whole, are like the Koch brothers are libertarians.
Yeah, I think they're more neoconservative, to be honest. But...
Yeah, pretty sure they are.
No. I mean, they're pro war only because of the fact that like they sell weapons of war, right? You know what I mean? But you know what I mean? Like again, like
the best type of libertarian.
The average libertarian is against war, so they wouldn't be in the business of war profits.
No. To be fair, the Koch brothers, if they made a profit from the war, then actually they're the best type of libertarians. They're making a profit. Good for them.
Yeah. Like again, look, this is just about profits. Like that's what libertarians are about. It's profits. They're about business and profits and like all that type of shit as far as stuff's concerned, right? You know what I mean? And that's what libertarianism is, as an in general thing, right? And like,
I'm sure the average libertarian is less concerned about profits than the average conservative or liberal. I think the average libertarian has some value for real morals and values and stuff, not just how can I make a quick buck.
Well, no.
I'm not sure. I think that. See, I'm a libertarian, right? And I'm not sure that the philosophy of libertarianism is actually conducive towards morality. I think it's conducive towards ethics, but not towards morality.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, like so. Libertarianism is about individualism. Right, it's about what's good for me. Like, I don't really care
it's
about.
It's not just about what's good for me. It's about I respect you, you respect me. We get along in polite civilization, right?
Oh, that comes down to the
the non-aggression principle.
You're right, the non-aggression principle. And okay, so I'm a libertarian myself. I'm a strong libertarian, but I do believe that the non-aggression principle is bullshit. I'm a libertarian that does not agree with the concept of the non-aggression principle. I think it's complete and utter hogwash.
So who should we be making wars with?
Well, preferably nobody.
Isn't that anti-aggression? I'm not saying don't be violent, but I'm saying don't just be aggressive just to pick people to target.
So, okay, here's my idea, right? I think that the non-aggression principle is actually contrary to nature. It's a human conception that libertarians invented, and maybe that's how they want the world to work, but that's not how the world actually works. The world works according to nature. It works according to basically natural selection, Darwinistic things. So when you say, oh, like, I think that people shouldn't be aggressive, well, that's the same thing as saying that animals shouldn't be aggressive. And it's like, well, you know what? The fact of reality is that things do tend to be aggressive. So why the fuck would you invent a philosophy based off of things ought not being aggressive? It doesn't make any sense. The world tends to be aggressive, and if your philosophy doesn't allow for that, then your philosophy is fucking bunk.
So libertarians allow for aggression, but it's not an offense, right? Like if someone breaks into your house, you have the right to put them down. Whereas you're not, oh, let's see, they have oil over there. I like what my neighbor has. Let's go break his fucking place down, bomb the shit out of him, steal his wife and children, and, you know?
But those are things that happen, right? like, you can wish that wouldn't happen. You can wish that your neighbor wouldn't, like, beat down your door and rape your wife or whatever. Like, you can wish for that, but the reality of the situation is that the non-aggression principle doesn't actually work. The fact of the matter is that all things will be aggressive, especially when survival is concerned. So I take,
fine with survival
personally speaking, I take the stance that I am a libertarian that does not agree with the non-aggression principle. I believe that that's a moral front that the libertarians are trying to put forward, but that moral front is simply a moral front. It doesn't actually make any sense in the context of reality. That's
when you
my
say
perspective.
aggression, do you mean it in the sense of looking for violence, or just being willing to commit violence if it comes to you?
Well, no. So like it's a cop out about responsibility, right? So like
What do we have?
The problem with the libertarians is
fucking fight everybody.
Well, no. The problem with the libertarians is like, so if their product causes harm to other people, they write it off and go like, well, they didn't have to use it if they didn't want to. You know what I mean? And like, so they don't have any responsibility to the nation or the community or the people around them because like their entire fucking motive is just profit, right? And this is like, so once you start understanding like what shit is as a whole, right? It makes life like way easier when you start looking at like, are these people evil? No, they're not really evil. They're just, they're just libertarians. You know what I mean? That's like what the fuck they have been forever. And we've accepted this and we haven't really had any conversations like about what should be done, because liberalism as a whole is a way for you to escape like your relationship with your country and your people and your community and everybody around you, even your family, right? Because like in the ideas of liberalism, it's like, oh man, my dad says that I should be a fucking plumber like he was, and like fucking you go, no, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna go be an engineer, and then his plumbing business dies, right? And the staple of your fucking community died, right? And like your community now lost a motherfucking brilliant person or a brain that like should have been there to try to help them, like fucking build a team or I don't know, like a piece of like infrastructure, whatever it is, right? And we don't have these type of like these motives in any part of our society. Liberalism, libertarianism, all of it, it's the same shit, right? Because like we're extreme individualists in the end of the day, and this is like what we don't look at because we don't like to look at ourselves and go like, what are we doing?
No,
because it's about profit.
No, in fact, what our civilization has become, and I hate to give Marx any credence, but he was correct about one thing. The worker has been removed from, I guess what did he call it? The purpose of his own creation, like the structure that has been created, I believe it's not. It doesn't have any sort of humanity in it. This corporate structure that we've created, I don't think that it benefits humans, and I don't think that it's actually what libertarians want. I think that libertarians fundamentally want freedom, and what we've created is a capitalistic structure that actually abhors freedom. It's not something that I think anyone can get behind. Not the communists, not the liberals, not the conservatives, not the libertarians. Literally no one likes this structure that we've created. I don't know actually who likes this structure, to be honest, except for those in charge.
The Rockefellers, right? They like this structure.
Right, well, and like they are the most important people. Remember to spay and neuter your children.
But it's not just them. So like, who else likes this structure? Women. You know what I mean? Like fucking everybody who is being held up by it, government bureaucrats, like people who are given self-importance. You know what I mean? The media figures, like all the individuals at the top of this structure, the cathedral, they enjoy this fucking structure because like it benefits them. You know what I mean? It's that old cui bono, like who benefits? You know what I mean? And that's who benefits off of all this fucking shit. You know what I mean? It's just not us. You know what I mean? As an in general thing. Right? And that's because of the fact that like we have this extreme liberal ideology of what the hell we are. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point. I
Like, we created this, and this is the problem. Like, yo, we created this, right? Like, you didn't create, like, fucking, like, you know, like, they didn't, like, this isn't some, like, overarching fucking structure. This is what we wanted. We wanted freedom. Well, here's your cost. Your humanity is your cost.
you know what? I think that you're absolutely right. And with that, we're at the we're getting kind of close to the hour mark. We're at 50 minutes, and I guess that we can conclude that there. So, any closing statements that you guys want to make?
Yo, man, check me out on Pnoid News. Man, listen, check me out on Odyssey on Pnoid News. You know, I get it done over here and do what I do. You know, I mean, y'all interested in, like, heavy-duty thought things of this type of nature, come check out my channel. I get it. You know, that's what I do. And everybody who's listening to this from my channel, make sure you drop a goddamn subscription. Hit that damn sub button on this motherfucking shit. If you ain't hitting it right now, I'm kicking you out the fucking Discord tomorrow. You understand? All right, that's where I'm at.
I'm just going to say question everything, follow the money, and don't trust anybody in positions of power.
Cool. And if you guys liked this particular conversation, if you liked what you had to say, it would be nice if you liked and subscribed. It helps the channel. And thank you all for listening. And with that, peace out.
Peace.
Peace.